What is up, everybody? Welcome to another video on the Alice Train Nutrition YouTube. Sorry about the lighting. It is very late in the evening, and people at my house are sleeping, and I also just don't have very expensive equipment. I work with what I got. So, uh, keep, let's keep this YouTube going. Keep that growing. That helps me out, and then it will help me buy better equipment so I can better serve you guys, and you guys get some better video quality. That whole thing. But anyways, let's go ahead and get into the video. If you're new here, please go ahead, hit the like, hit the subscribe button. My name is Leighton, and I'm gonna be talking about diets today. That's just kind of like what I do. It's something that I'm very passionate about. I absolutely love talking nutrition. Training's a lot of fun to talk about, but diets is my absolute jam. I love talking about nutrition just because it just clicks for me. It's something I really enjoy. But anyways, first things first, this is just kind of the agenda of what we're going to be going through today. So, no such thing as perfect diet, basics of metabolism, caloric surplus versus deficit, because those are just two terms that to me, they're very self-explanatory. If you've been in the gym long enough, it's very obvious as to what that is. But if you're new in it's completely fine. If you don't know what that is, that doesn't make you any less of a gym rat. It just means you're just uneducated in the nutrition side of things, and that's perfectly fine. You got to start somewhere. And then principle of individuality, we'll get into that. That's just like a whole thing. And then making a decision, like what is going to help you make the best decision based off of your goals and what you're looking to do in the gym. So there's a couple of different things going into that. But anyways, first slide, no such thing as a perfect diet. There is just quite frankly no such thing as a diet that is going to be absolutely perfect for any given individual. That includes keto, carnivore, paleo, balanced, low carb, low fat, vegan, vegetarian, everything. Nothing is going to be perfect. Each diet is going to have its own pluses and own cons per se. So pluses and negatives, pros and cons, however the heck you want to say that, boos and woos. Um, like keto, my personal opinion, I do not like keto whatsoever. I've tried it, it did not work for me. I just did not enjoy life. But I also have a lot of really good friends who have done keto, and it actually worked really well for them, and they've actually lost a ton of weight with that. Didn't have any horrible side effects from it, um, except the fact that they were scared of bread, essentially. So yeah, there's that. But otherwise, there's like it's not to just completely bash keto to say it doesn't work, but in my opinion, from my personal experience, I don't recommend keto. However, if I have a client and that diet just absolutely works for them, then that's what we're gonna go with. Carnivore, I don't have anything against carnivore. I think I've seen a lot of pluses of carnivore. Really reduces inflammation, clears up skin, kind of kicks out a couple of autoimmune disease type things. Um, I think carnivore can be very good depending on your lifestyle. The only thing is that I know that you really primarily eat a ton of beef. I like beef, don't get me wrong. I love a good New York strip, a good steak. It's fantastic. I live in Florida. We bleed red, white, and blue around here. A good steak on the 4th of July, you can't beat it, period. However, me personally, I love chicken more than anything. And yes, you eat chicken on carnivore, but it's really primarily beef as a protein source. So, and then you eat butter and a couple of other dirty. I don't know why I said dirty. A couple of other various things on carnivore. And so I'm not fully experienced in carnivore. I've read into it. I've seen the pluses of it. I really have never seen any bad side effects of it that actually impacted health per se. Outside of it, obviously does raise cholesterol and a couple of things like that. But I'll tell you right now, high cholesterol, unless you're just absolutely building plaque up in your arteries, if you're a perfectly healthy individual and you are moving, you're active, you have great cardiovascular health, all these other things, and it's not like plaque buildup in your arteries or anything like that, having a higher cholesterol is nothing to freak out about. My dad, he's down 40-ish pounds. My dad started at 320. He's been now down at like 280, given last check-in, and he's only been working with me for about 2 months. And so he's absolutely killing it. That is a very fast weight loss for um, on any grand scale, 40 pounds in 2 months, that is huge. Don't expect to do that. My dad, like I just said, my dad was 320 pounds. He's a big guy. He's a big corn-fed Missouri boy. Um, really strong, but he was just big. And looking at his blood work, he did have some really high cholesterol, but after losing those 40 pounds, his cholesterol came down significantly. But everything, the cholesterol that you want to be higher is going to be your HDL, your uh, high density. I can't even remember what the L stands for. High density versus low density cholesterol. Basically, the high density is good for your arteries. Low density is the kind that's gonna like build up plaque and stuff. So you don't want the LDL to be higher. But if your overall cholesterol content is, they say it should be like, I want to say it's like, I don't even remember what the measurements are, but it's 200 is the way it comes out on blood work. That's like the upper limit that you want. My cholesterol sits around at like, I think like 250-ish, 250, 260, and I'm a completely healthy individual. It used to be 300 back in, I believe, the 80s or 90s, and then the like World Health Organization bumped it down to like 200 for whatever reason. Anyways, back to the whole diet point of that. Paleo, I have nothing against paleo. I don't really know a whole lot about that one either. I've never actually done paleo. Um, as to carnivore, I tried carnivore out for about a month, just wasn't huge on it. Keto, I did that for a while. I actually pretty much I did a version of keto per se when I was losing all my weight when I was 250 back when I was in high school. Um, for the record, now I'm sitting around about 220, but I'm at like 105 pounds of lean body mass at about 5'10". So I'm a dense guy. Like I'm big and hefty. I'm built to be a power lifter, and I honestly really enjoy powerlifting. But I like bodybuilding too, so that's why we got that going on. But anyways, don't have a whole lot of experience with paleo. Everything that I've seen on paleo, nothing really bad comes out of it. It's just a different way of dieting. There's nothing bad about it per se. There's nothing exponentially great about it either. Nothing awful. Low carb, low fat. Really, the whole saying low carb, low fat is better than the other. Really, that comes down to you, which we'll get into that in the principle of individuality in a later slide. But low carb, nothing against that. Low fat, absolutely nothing against that. If that works for a client, that works. If it doesn't work for a client, it doesn't work. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just finding a matter as to like kind of what fits. But each one is going to have its own drawbacks and its own pluses. So again, like I said, it's going to really depend on like what your goal is. Depending on like what is in the gym. Are you a performance athlete? Are you a strength athlete? Are you a physique athlete? Are you just a gym rat who really likes to, bang out some heavy weight in the gym? Really, it all depends on that. So, like I said, it all depends on the person. Um, anyways, on to the next slide. Metabolism. Metabolism. Oh my gosh. Everybody loves to overcomplicate this. While it is pretty complicated, it's also very not. You have this thing called a BMR, which is your basal metabolic rate. Think of that as baseline as to what your calories are, based off of your activity, your age, your height, um, male or female, whatever sex you are. Um, it's going to be your baseline. That is going to be how many calories you need to take in a day to maintain your current weight. Um, Other things that are going to play a role into this that I don't have this on the slide is going to be lean muscle mass. If you have lean muscle mass, you're going to have a higher BMR than you would if you didn't have as much lean muscle mass. Um, so there's just a lot of factors that really play into that. Activity level is a huge thing of it. Like my BMR for my height, my weight per se, me just walking around, if I absolutely didn't work out at all throughout the week, my basal metabolic rate is about, I think, like 2,300 calories. But because of my activity level and the amount I work out throughout a week, um, and again, any BMR calculator, let me just preface this. Any BMR calculator is not going to be 100% on the dot for your actual basal metabolic rate. It never will be. It's just a good estimate as to what you're going to be looking at. So people will think, oh yeah, my BMR, the calculator said it's supposed to be this many calories. that's based off of the information that you gave it, and also if you skew something as to, oh, like I think I'm about, 190 when really you're about 205, that's going to throw it off. You put your activity level as, yeah, like I'm extremely active when really you only go to the gym about 4 days a week, and you don't have like an extremely strenuous job like instruction or anything. That's going to you're going to add on an extra, 300-400 calories just putting that into the calculator. So you have to be really honest with yourself when you're putting that BMR in. You have to be very realistic when you're doing that. So being honest on that, and also just really taking everything into account when you are trying to calculate your BMR, it's a big part of it. Um, and then there's also different methods to find it. There's I believe it's the Saint Mifflin Gior method. I believe that's how you pronounce it. I'm pretty sure that's it. That's the one that I like to use the most. I also personally I will hand calculate all of my stuff because I don't know. I'm kind of sometimes the websites that are on certain softwares are just finicky. So I know that if I just take the equation myself, write it on a piece of paper. I also like doing math and like seeing the numbers actually written out myself as to how everything got there. That's how I know for a fact, like, okay, this is about right. And plus, you can also kind of play with the activity factor a little bit more in that because it's a whole equation. But anyways, personally, I like to write it down. It gives me more viability as to move things around, such as activity level and the different factors that you can put in for that. It kind of put it on the in between instead of doing you're here or you're here, when really you might be like right there in the middle. So that's just me personally. But all that to say, BMR, that is your baseline whenever people say, oh, my basal metabolic rate or my maintenance calories. That is the number one thing that is called maintenance calories. When they say maintenance calories, that is your BMR. That's your baseline. That's all that is. Next, okay, surplus, deficit. Huge thing that is just thrown around. You'll see it a lot more common terms that you'll hear in the gym is surplus, you're bulking, deficit, you're cutting. All that means is bulking. I don't like using that word personally because whenever you hear bulking, typically you're listening to a high schooler giving an excuse to eat a box of Pop-Tarts a day. That's about what that is. Personally, if you know what I looked like when I was in high school, I was bulking. It was the perma bulk. So and then I actually went on a really strenuous cut. And then the cut was not an actual strategic cut. I just crashed my calories. And while that worked because I was severely overweight, now I can't necessarily do that because I have a good amount of lean muscle on me. Um, Taking out a significant amount of calories crushes recovery, and then you're also gonna just destroy your um, you can mess with your hormones if you crash them too fast. There's a million things that can go wrong if you just crash your calories and you're not eating enough protein, you're not eating enough calories to keep your body in a good state of recovery. It can throw everything off. You can get bad things like rhabdomyolysis, which that's just but basically muscle deterioration by the liver, and that just all comes down to bad recovery and not proper nutrition. So there's a lot of things like people say like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go on a cut, and then they'll go from eating 3,100 calories a day to 2,000 calories, and you can do that, but it's not recommended because that one you're gonna be miserable cutting out 1,000 calories from your daily. Um, Going down to 2,000. I've tried it from high school. Speaking from experience, that is a horrible, horrible idea. Do not do that. Um, and then it's also the same thing for a surplus. If you're going from eating only 2,000 calories a day and you immediately jump up to say 3,000 calories, speaking from experience here, I did that post show, not saying I ate 3,000 calories of clean calories. I smacked a box of crumble cookies in a day. Inflammation, water retention, my body did not know what to do with all the food I was putting in my body because it wasn't used to it, especially after a 20-week contest prep. I had edema, which edema, if you don't know, that's when a pregnant lady has really bad water retention throughout her body and their feet swell and they get cankles. That's edema. All that is just really, really high water retention. It gets kind of hard on your kidneys, and you're not having proper fluid flush out. And so that can be pretty dangerous, especially if you're coming off a contest prep. You can actually like put yourself in the hospital if you come off and go too hard too fast. Um, yeah, but anyways, like I was saying, surplus going from really low to really high in a blink of an eye. That is personally, that's a bad idea in itself. Increasing moderate small increases every couple of weeks. I like to do probably every 3 to 4 weeks. Then if you start plateauing, but if the scale keeps going up and you're still holding like a good body composition and the scale keeps going up, then you're good. Keep it at that calories. If you start plateauing and you say you plateau for 2 or 3 weeks of not gaining weight, then you would bump up your calories. It's not, oh, I didn't gain a pound or I didn't gain, say, I didn't gain 3 pounds in a week. Okay, that's normal. You don't want to gain 3 pounds in a week. That means you're going up too fast, unless you're like a very high level athlete who are taking some extremely special supplements. If you're catching what I'm putting down. Anyways, point being, surplus deficit, just something to think about. Bulking, cutting are the more common terms. But anyways, all that to say, you take the no diet is perfect, the bulking is cutting, plus BMR. What actually works for you? Everybody is different. No, quite literally, when they say, "Oh, your body's different than everybody else's," it's your body. Yes, that is 1,000% true. Now, people's bodies are more similar than other people's bodies. For example, there's like 3 different body types, which this is just like old school thing. If you get Arnold's Encyclopedia of Modern Bodybuilding, it's included in there. There's ectomorph, endomorph, and mesomorph. Ecto, you have a really high metabolism naturally. Typically, you're gonna see people that are called hard gainers. Like they say that they're eating 4,000 calories and they just can't gain weight. They naturally have abs, but they're also really skinny. Those are hard gainers, which, for the record, there's nothing wrong with that. If you're naturally struggle with putting on weight and you have abs and you want to stay that way and you just want to keep abs and be like relatively like a smaller person, like that's fine. I know I say smaller and that sounds like a negative connotation, but I promise you that is perfectly fine. If that's what you want, more power to you. Me personally, I would like to be able to pick up the front of a Prius. That's just me, myself, and I. And also, have to have a double wide casket whenever I pass away. Want to be big and strong. But anyways, digestion, that is a huge part of nutrition in itself. A lot of people will say, oh, this will work, this will work, this will work every single time. Not always the case. Different people have different digestion problems. I say digestion problems, but their body's going to process food differently than other people. Just like with things like food sensitivities, gluten, like for example, here in the US, the way it's processed, you'll have a lot of people with what's called a gluten intolerance when really it's not necessarily a gluten intolerance. There's been tons of studies where it's like people will go from the US to overseas, say like Spain, Italy, somewhere in Europe. And the way that they process, say like bread over there is completely different than the way we do it here. So all that to say, everybody's going to have a different food sensitivity of some sort. And it can also just be the way it's processed or the brand that you're using. Because there have been times where I've been trying to use something on my diet and it's like, wow, that really makes me bloated, or I retain water really bad with it, or whatever the heck it might be. And I just simply switch the brand or switch to something that has a better processing or whatever it might be, a simple ingredient change. Um, and I don't have those problems. And it's like, okay, that works for me. As to where I've had other friends who have done the opposite of that, where it's I took something that worked for me, recommended it to them, did not work for them, and it was something simple like a different like brand of bread or something. It could be something as simple as that. And they went to something that I personally myself wouldn't use, and it worked great for them, and that's perfectly fine. And like I said, this is the whole principle of individuality. It is individual to you. Your diet is going to be specific to you. Now, a deficit is a deficit and a surplus is a surplus, period. If you're in a deficit, you're going to lose weight, period. And depending on how bad or good your recovery is, You'll either keep as much muscle as possible or you'll lose some in the process. Same thing with surplus. If you are in a surplus, you will be gaining weight. But if you're not in a surplus, you won't gain weight. You're just going to be probably maintaining, or you're not going to gain weight at the rate that is, I guess, optimal. It's going to depend on what your time frame looks like too. Because bodybuilders, for example, they will spend uh, 8, 9, 10 months in an off season trying to put on muscle, and they may only gain, say, 10 pounds or 12, 15 pounds over those months, but their body composition didn't change a whole lot. They kind of remained at the same level of body fat, but they're that much heavier. That's more than likely going to be lean muscle mass, and that's really what you want when you are in a surplus. But all that to say, it's individual to you as a person. There is not one magic little thing that is going to be like lose weight or gain weight. It's if you're in a surplus, you're in a surplus. If you're in a deficit, you're in a deficit. And again, that all comes down to what are your goals, what's your lifestyle look like, and what's that going to how's that going to affect you, whether that's digestion, food sensitivities, what works for you. That's the whole principle of individuality, which leads to the final point of the entire video, making the decision. What's best suited for you, best suited for your lifestyle. I know some religions, like Hindu, for example, you can't eat pork or beef or certain other animals. I'm not super sure. I'm not educated on Hindu. That's just, I know for a fact that there's certain Eastern religions that are like that. But as for me myself, I don't eat pork personally. But that isn't like a religious thing for me. It just doesn't agree with my body, and so I just don't like eating it. Also, it's really high in fat, and that's just not good for what I want in the goals per se for what I'm trying to do. What agrees with your body? That's that simple. Like I was just talking about with the principle of individuality, what works for you. It could be a certain way a bread is processed. It could be a certain brand of chicken, the way that it's the chicken's raised, the whatever it's called, the like growth hormones or y'all know what I'm talking about. They talk about the GMOs or whatever. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm talking about. It's on the news all the time. The news is a bunch of propaganda and some stuff. And then goals. So are you a performance athlete? Are you a strength athlete? Are you a physique athlete? Are you just a local gym rat who likes to, bang out some weights? All of that can play into what your nutrition will look like. And so like if you're a physique athlete, you might be trying to cut down, or you're going to try and bulk back up and not put on a certain level of body fat. As a power lifter, for example, if you're a strength athlete or an ollie lifter, you might be in a deficit, not necessarily to hold a certain look, but so you can make a weight class or you can raise that dot score for a powerlifting meet. So, like I said, goals, it comes down to it. If you're a performance-based athlete, so say like an endurance athlete or a CrossFitter, that's going to affect your nutrition to a whole another level because it's very high intensity cardio training. You're also moving weights, you're running. There's a ton of different things that go into that. I'm not a CrossFitter. I'm all good on all that. I don't like cardio as it is, but I still do cardio because it's good for you. But that's a whole other video. Cardiovascular. Do your cardio. But yeah, all that to say, make the decision that best suits you. Don't make a decision because this worked for one person. Do your research, figure out what works for your body, and what's going to fit with you as a person. It's like a puzzle piece. A puzzle piece that works for one person may not work for another. It's one of those things like kind of plug and play, figure out what works for you, and then go from there. But yeah, so that's all I got for nutrition. If you guys have any questions about it, go ahead, drop it in the comments. I'll respond to them. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope this was helpful. For coaching inquiries, you can find my email in the description below. And then please just leave a like, hit the sub button, hit the little bell. That way you guys keep your notifications when I put these videos out. And once again, hope you find this helpful. And I will catch y'all in the next LS Training and Nutrition educational video. See y'all.